Hello and welcome back to the Jules with Gem podcast. I am your host GiGi and I hope you're well. If you're new, welcome. I'm honored to have you here. And if you're returning, I'm humbled to have you back. And to all my new subbies, welcome, welcome, welcome. You are the VIPs indeed. And thank you ever so much for the support. I hope that you and I can share and learn on this journey because it's certainly not a destination. So, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, there are a total of 12 houses, and each house is basically a segment or an area of life. So, each house has a ruler, and that ruler is any of the 12 zodiac signs. So, the 10th house. Now, this house, honestly, it needs no introduction. It's also known as the midheaven. And I honestly say that it needs no introduction because whether we admit it or not, we are just constantly engaged in activities that activate our 10th house. And as I'd mentioned before, that is the midheaven. So the midheaven or the 10th house is literally the house that's opposite the 4th house, and I'll probably mention that forever and a day in this video because honestly, it is that house that's literally at the top of our charts. It's something that you just can't miss. Well, so is social media, right? That is literally, if you want to know a bit about somebody or if you want to dig up some information about somebody, just hop on over to Google and, do a search on them. That's like the easiest way to kind of get some sort of information about people. So you definitely do want to get this house if you want to see how they are towards society or how they show up in the world. Of course, this is definitely different to the ascendant because that's the ascendant is how people perceive you, and it's all about the self. The 10th house is more about how you come across to the world, how you choose to be in social settings, in public spaces, or even just, being social. So we're constantly engaged in social activities. So this is the house that's honestly always just activated. And I think in our modern society, a lot of emphasis is put on one's reputation, your public life, your career, your status, and how all of these just need to be perfectly curated in order to project a certain perception. Because obviously we need to present ourselves in a certain way. Well, not we need to as if, like we're being coerced, but you definitely are limited in terms of the things that you can speak about. Even though we do have a certain level of freedom of speech, we do have to be mindful of the fact that, this is the type of information that is accessible to any and everybody. If you do have a public, account on, I don't want to mention all of the social media platforms, but yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. If you do have a public account, then obviously anybody and everybody has access to it. And how many times have we heard, even when searching for jobs, about how we should be mindful about the things that we post? So we definitely don't really have freedom of speech or freedom of expression because we still need to be considerate of how we present ourselves to the world. So of course, that in itself is already limited, and that in itself is already a perception that we are trying to curate because it's something that is controlled. It is something that we have, and of course, speaking of control, Saturn is definitely all about control. It's all about discipline, and I'll definitely get into that a bit later. But as I was saying, we're definitely trying to curate some sort of perception to the public. I guess this is something that we all do. It's not just specific to just anybody. I think we all do engage in curating a certain perception about ourselves on social media because I think a lot of the time we just feel as though we just don't want to be judged. We just don't want to be too open with people that we don't know, which honestly I feel is an injustice to a lot of our personalities. Because a lot of us are open, a lot of us are friendly, a lot of us are kind-hearted, a lot of us do want to engage. Like myself, I want to engage with almost everyone. If I could honestly have a global platform to just kind of sit in and listen to people's experiences and learn from people's experiences, most importantly, and as a Capricorn sun, with a 9th house stellium, this is definitely something that I'd be interested in. So I always want to hear about people's experiences. I always want to learn. So, that would be the best, actually. But I don't want to talk too much about that. So this is something we definitely all do. We all are trying to create a certain public perception. And, I think social media has just made it exceptionally easy for people to create a certain image. I mean, you're already judged based on the posts that you've made, whether these are posts from 5 months ago, 5 minutes ago, or even from 5 years ago. It literally does not matter. You will be judged based on that post. And I mean, how many people have lost their jobs? How many people have, lost something, or perceptions change because of posts that they may have posted, or opinions that you may have had. And of course, those are things that change within a minute. We're dealing with people are fickle by nature. We see that all the time. So to really judge somebody based on their social media is kind of not really an accurate way to go about things. But of course, that's a conversation for another day. We are currently focusing on the 10th house and its influence. So how the 4th house, which is exactly opposite the 10th house, is about your real, raw, uncut version of self, and how and who you are behind closed doors. I think that's very important to mention, because this is the part of ourselves that not a lot of people will be exposed to. I don't even think that we even get to a certain level where we're that comfortable with other people from the outside to actually see that part of ourselves. So it's really, really, really at the core. And I mean, if you think about it, the 4th house, I think I mentioned this in my 4th house video as well. The 4th house is literally, I don't want to say the bottom pit, like it doesn't mean anything, but it's literally at the bottom. It's that part of the chart that's literally covered, if that makes sense. It's not really seen compared to the 10th house, which is kind of up there and everybody notices. You really have to look that much deeper or that much further down to actually see the 4th house. So that's what the 4th house is about. It's really about you just being your real self, your raw self, your really the uncut, makeupless version of yourself, if I can put it that way. And then you have the 10th house, which is who we are when we open those doors to the public. And I'll also talk about the connection between the 4th house and the 10th house as well a bit later in this video. So the 10th house, it lets us know about the career, maybe not the career in itself, but definitely the goals that you may have, or even the industry that would be best suited to you. For example, if you've got Aquarius in your 10th house, then it would make absolute sense for you to have a career in, broadcasting or technology or podcasting, because, air signs are messengers. So messengers are the people messengers are the people that connect people. I mean, without Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, we literally would not have information, because all of the rest of the other signs are not really that into information, if at all. I mean, Virgo's into information, however, it's on a different scale. Sagittarius is into information, but it's also at a different scale, which is right opposite Gemini. So literally Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius, these are the people that hold all of the information. These are the people that collect the data and, kind of spread it out. So you having, Aquarius in your midheaven definitely means that you are going to be a broadcaster, or a publisher, whether that be through writing, whether that being through being a journalist, being a blogger, working on social media platforms, anything that has to do with really reaching out, if I can put it that way. Anything, if it has to do with communicating with people, if it has to do with connecting with people, if it has any connection to sharing of information, sharing knowledge, sharing wisdom, it's definitely going to be right up your alley. So you can see how the 10th house may not be a direct correlation to what you have to do, but it can definitely give you a sense of what type of environment you may find yourself in. So this is definitely most air signs actually need to be, especially if you have it in your 10th house, you need to be in spaces where you are absolutely creative, where you're kind of independent. You don't really have anybody trying to micromanage what you're doing, what time you're coming into the office, or asking you, is that like the 10th cup of coffee that you're having for the day, and it's not even 10 o'clock in the morning kind of vibe. So like I said, you guys are the people that want to connect with humanity. You absolutely need to be able to express yourself. So being a radio host is absolutely awesome. I think also sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, your experiences, and also just having debates with a number of people is definitely big here. So, as opposed to somebody who has maybe Capricorn or even Cancer in this house, which would then indicate a career maybe best suited to stability, which would be perfect or most suitable for earth signs, because earth signs need stability. They need a career that is sort of stable. They need something that appreciates with value over time. And not to say that all of the other signs can't have that too. I just really want to emphasize the fact that it needs to be something stable. So maybe a job in like a really big corporate company where they are almost guaranteed some sort of growth. So a dead-end job is definitely not going to cut it here. Or maybe even being their own boss, because that way you can continue growing, and really the sky is not even the limit when it comes to the potential of, growing. And then you have, Cancer, who would prefer a career that's more aligned with, catering to people, nurturing people, really dealing with people's emotions, people's psyche, people's psychology. So, Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, really getting into the nitty-gritty of how people think, why they do the things that they do. So definitely a doctor, definitely a therapist, definitely even a psychologist, even criminology to a certain extent. So all of those, that way you can uncover and really get to know how people work on an emotional level and on a mental level to some degree. So depending on what's in the 10th house, that will definitely paint a clearer picture. Also the aspects are very important. This is something that I always stress in any case. So I've also mentioned this in my probably my first video about astrology, where I was saying that our birth charts really are just a means to connect the dots. The same way, when we look at the sky, or we look at a constellation, it's literally a way of, connecting the dots, and then sort of taking those dots while they have formed a shape and really trying to make sense of that shape. That's really what it's about. So like I said, the 10th house could definitely represent the type of job or the nature of the type of job that you may have. Also, I just wanted to add, if you are struggling, making a decision based on what you would like to do, don't even know why that's happening right now, but excuse me for that. If you are struggling making a decision about what to do to make money, or if you're having some troubles trying to choose a career path, because honestly, guys, like, it's really a mess out there. Honestly, there is just so much to do. And me even having a Gemini moon, sometimes I just want to have the liberty of doing everything. But of course, that is not really possible in the grand scheme of things. Like, if we really want to talk about things that are tangible, it's virtually impossible for me to do every single career under the sun. So if you are interested in knowing a bit more about what you can do to actually generate an income, or sort of have an idea of which route to take, you definitely should check out the signs that are in your 2nd, 6th, and 10th houses, to get an understanding of the type of career that you should be doing to accumulate money. So I think my houses combined, so the signs that are on the cusp of the 2nd, 6th, and the 10th house are all in air. So according to me, and what I've studied about astrology, I need to be doing exactly what I'm doing right now, which is broadcasting. I write my own scripts. I share some of the knowledge that I've learned and read about. I'm constantly learning, and I'm broadcasting information out to people. So that is what air energy is. It literally travels. It's like in the air. It's neither here nor there. It's constantly moving. It's not limited to what it can do. So I definitely do not want to be limited in terms of, I really don't want to say being stuck in an office 9 to 5 type vibe, because you do need to sit still at some point in time, but I just don't want to be doing something that's going to be giving me money whereby I need to be stationed all the time. Like, I don't want to be stuck in a routine. That is definitely that air energy coming out of me. So broadcasting, writing, sharing knowledge, learning, this is definitely big. This should definitely give you an idea of what it is that you could be doing, should be doing. Also, remember to, of course, look at the aspects to the ruler of these houses, so that you can just get a better understanding. So in my case, broadcasting by means of a podcast, I've got Gemini in the 2nd house. Also Gemini in the 2nd house, and also my moon is in the 2nd house, and my moon is actually trine to my midheaven. So I'm generally going to be connecting with people emotionally, if that makes sense. I'll be connecting with people publicly, but I'll be connecting with them in an emotional way, through my writing, through the way that I speak, through the topics that I talk about. Hopefully that does make sense. But yes, Gemini is broadcasting actually is a theme of Gemini, because you're sharing knowledge, you're taking information and obviously processing it the way that you understand it, and obviously bringing it forth into the world. And I'm being of service in a way, because the 6th house is of course a house of service. So I'm being of service and helping restore balance, because Libra's in my 6th house, through astrology, which is an unorthodox medium that is of course an Aquarius 10th house theme. I hope that makes sense. So the 10th house also really gives me a vibe of what people want to be remembered for ultimately, what contribution it is that you want to make to the world, what you'd like to be remembered for. So it really just goes beyond just the career and your reputation. It's more like, when I die, I want to be remembered for X, Y, and Z, because a lot of the time we don't even have conversations with people about the types of, like what they would want to be remembered for. It's always like our perception of what we feel they want to be remembered for. I don't think I know of anybody who has ever said or mentioned in their obituary that, oh, I want to be, and it was like something that this person said verbatim, to say, I want to be remembered as such and such a person. I think it's more a perception of how people, would view it. It's not really coming from the horse's mouth. But definitely the 10th house is really about your contribution to the public, to people, to your community. But of course not community, because the 10th house is very public. So it's definitely going to be along the lines of your global reach, your public reach. So I think it's also about curating a legacy. So people may not know you personally, but they can feel like they've known you because of what you've left behind and the parts of yourself that you have chosen to expose. So it's almost like having a conversation with dozens of people daily, but not really having an intimate one-on-one conversation. I think that's what the 10th house is all about, because remember I'd mentioned before, I think of the 10th house as literally social media. It's literally what you put out there. It's literally your public image that you have control over. So it's literally like having a conversation with multiple people, but nobody really knowing you outside of that or inside of that. I thought that sounded cool. But anyway, the 10th house is associated with Capricorn. And if we know anything about Capricorn, we know that Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is the planet of time, karma. And yes, I know there's nothing really exciting about what I've just said. But slow and steady definitely wins the race. And this is pretty much the motto for Capricorn energy. This is pretty much the motto for any 10th houses. This is pretty much the energy that you will be exuding if you do have any aspects to the ruler of this house. So now that we've established that, that just simply means that if you do have any planets here, then you're gonna spend an incredible amount of time, focus, and definitely energy on the themes of this house. So you're definitely gonna be obsessing about your public reputation. You're definitely gonna be obsessing about how people perceive you in the public. And I don't think it even has anything to do with what you think people think about you, but of course that might come into your head. But I think it's more as you grow older, and if you do have planets here, I think it goes beyond that. I think you just get to a point where you're just like, okay, this is what I like, and this is what I value, this is my opinion about such and such, and leaving it at that, and just accepting the fact that you also have a say. You also have opinions that you would like to voice out. Maybe if you're like a fashion blogger, you also have a sense of style. This is the type of style that you like. Anything really that you feel that you want to bring out into the world, anything that you want to share with the world, that is literally 10th house energy. So if you have any planets here, you'll definitely be focusing a lot of energy on the themes of that house. So your career, reputation, as I'd mentioned before. So planets in this house definitely really do matter, because this is what people will see. If you have Jupiter there, you'll probably be extremely popular. You might even be considered as somebody who may be a bit pompous, maybe a bit arrogant. You may be seen as somebody who is just constantly jolly when it comes to your public image. When it comes to your reputation, people might know you as somebody who's very generous, or as somebody who's very spiritual, or as somebody who's extremely religious. So it just depends really, like I always say, on the aspects to that Jupiter, and where the ruler of where the ruler of Sagittarius actually is, or where Sagittarius is as well, to help you, give you an understanding of what is actually going on, and what the chart is actually trying to tell you. So it really, it's really, really emphasized. If you have planets there, honestly, people are gonna notice this energy about you. People are gonna see this energy about you. I love people with Venus in the 10th house, because I just feel like, I feel like they are the teachers' pets of the world. Like, honestly, there's nothing really bad that I can actually say about Venus in the 10th house, although of course everything has a pros and cons, but I definitely do love this energy. Venus and Jupiter, these are the great benefic planets in astrology, so you definitely want to have really nice planets in there, right? So I also want to connect it to the part about you focusing so much of your energy on this house if you do have planets there, because I think that it does create a sort of a disconnect to who you really are. Because if you're spending so much time curating a public image, how much of the time do you really get to spend with yourself? Like on let's just be real, like how much of your time do you actually get to spend to get to know yourself internally, get to know your soul, get to know yourself without thinking, or without the limitation, rather, I think is the perfect word, without the limitation of thinking about how you want to say this to sound politically correct. So I think if you do have a lot of planets here, if you do have more than 3 planets, which is also known as a stellium, or even having, more than 3 planets in one particular sign, so that being any of the 12 signs, and they are concentrated in one particular house, then I don't want to say this in a bad way, but you probably don't really take care of yourself in the way that you should be taking care of yourself, because like I said, your energy is so focused on what you're putting out there, instead of finding a way to balance what you put out there and what is happening internally. Because as we know, being balanced internally is extremely important, especially in this day and age that we are currently living in. So if you have maybe like a moon in the 10th house, you may really take what other people have to say about you really, really seriously, or you actually care about what people have to say about you. I mean, obviously, we need to care to some extent about what people think about us, because at the end of the day, people can create opportunities for us. So we need to be mindful of that. So, you kind of do need to have a sense of discernment when it comes to how people feel about you. But it's not to say that everything that people have to say about you is correct, right? You take what you want to take and leave the rest. That's kind of how the energy needs to be when dealing with people in general, not even in astrology, but in the grand scheme of things, this is just how we need to be. We need to take advice that actually makes sense, and advice that we also feel that, this is something that I can actually work on, or, take things as a compliment as well, because, people won't always have bad things to say about you all of the time. So we don't really have to focus on the negative things all of the time. But because Capricorn, Saturn energy is described as, a pessimistic. Yes, I think I'm saying that right. I'm not too sure. Let me know down below in the comments. But yes, a negative energy. Sometimes it can be, a lot of the times, experiences, things that are said to them can be perceived in a negative way. And that's why, you really need to cheer up. If you have a lot of planets in here, it's actually so hard, but it definitely does get easier as you age. So like I said, yes, if you've got moon in the 10th house, then your emotions really are going to be based on what people have to say about you, which is really sad, because at the end of the day, the moon is such an unstable energy. You really don't want to have it in a house that's as public as the 10th house, because virtually, literally, your emotions are based on what's happening outside of you. And of course, you can't always have control of what happens outside of you. Matter of fact, you can't control people and what they have to say about you. Whether they love you or they hate you is really none of your business. You should just keep sipping your water. Okay. So also I'm now going to tie it into the 4th house. The 4th house being the house of our childhood. It's literally where we look internally. That is our soul. That is our depth. And as I was saying, that if we have a lot of planets in the 10th house, then we tend to put most of our energy into that house. So a lot of our time is spent thinking about things outside of ourselves. I think that's why a lot of the time earth sign energies don't know how to take compliments, don't know how to slow down. That's why they're known as the hardest working people, because they are always focused on things that are external of them, which is kind of sad, but it is what it is. We do need signs to provide us with stability, right? And as a Capricorn, I definitely do understand it. So like I said, the 4th house is really about the internal things, and the 10th house is what we look for externally. So the 4th house being what we look for internally, and then the 10th house being what we look for externally. So if you have a moon there, it's what you look for externally is really tied into your sense of self and your roots. because the moon is associated with the 4th house. So already, that's already an opposition right there. So it definitely does make sense that whatever's in the 10th house, that's the type of energy that we look for externally. So if you have Venus in the 10th house, for example, you may search for love, you may search for comfort, you may search for luxury, or you may do things that will enable you to experience that. So you might work really, really hard to make all this money so that you can live a comfortable life, so that you can have, you can be surrounded by beauty and, luxurious things and comfort, and, most of all, stability. So if you grew up in a household that wasn't particularly stable, you're going to do all that you can to make sure that, in your later years, you are living comfortably and lavishly, which is one of the themes of Venus. So it's not only about maybe being perceived as beautiful or attractive, it also goes a bit deeper than that, in that your needs, your Venus needs and your Venus wants and your Venus desires are definitely going to be things that you're going to be looking for externally or outside of yourself, which is definitely dangerous if you don't know about the energy and if you don't know how to actually tame the energy. So as I always emphasize and stress, I cannot stress this enough, you need to seriously get into the habit of checking out what's in your birth chart so that you can understand all of these energies that you possess within yourself, as to prevent not bleeding on other people who have not cut you, right? So like I said, you may search for Venus things. So love, you may search for love out there, you may search for acceptance, you may search for luxury, like I said, you may search for attention, or you may really just want to be heard or even appreciated for your sense in music, your sense in fashion, your sense of style. Well, style and fashion, really same thing, GiGi, but yeah, you guys get what I'm saying. So or you just may be really, really involved with your work to the point where you always find yourself in positions where you're sacrificing, like it's either your family or your work, or you giving more attention to the other, but it will definitely always be work, because remember, Venus is love, so you must really be in love with your work. Like if it was so you'll just definitely have maybe a bit of an unhealthy relationship, obviously depending on the aspect. You'll definitely have an unhealthy relationship with the themes of the 10th house, but you can also have like really awesome, great experiences, because I have Venus in the 10th house, so my Venus is well aspected to a certain degree. So my experiences with Venus is that I always find that people want to do things for me, or people want to expose me to, comfort and luxury. I always find that people just want to take care of me in a way. And my Capricorn sun is just like, no. And my Taurus ascendant is always just like, no, I got this. So I actually really need to tap into sometimes just accepting help, and really accepting the fact that I also deserve nice things, and I deserve comfort, and I deserve to be around people that are loving and supportive and all those good Venus type stuff, especially since it is in Pisces for me anyway. So yeah, you may just be overly in love with your work, and I think you may do this because, of course, these are the themes, or these are the things that you were starved of, like I was said. So in your childhood, these are things that you were starved of. So you may be starved of attention, you may have been starved of love, you may have been starved of stability, because like I said, Venus is associated with Taurus and Libra, so you need balance and you need stability. I cannot emphasize this enough. If you do have Venus, or if you do have Venus here, or if you have Libra, if you have a Libra midheaven, or even a Taurus midheaven, this is definitely of importance to you. So yeah, just being surrounded by love and nurturing, and you may have not had that in your childhood. Like I said, it definitely depends on the aspects as I'm always emphasizing. But this is just a reminder, tubers, take what resonates and leave the rest. I always hope to bring clarity in the understanding or study of astrology, and I hope you have understood a little bit more about the 10th house and its influence. In my next video, I will be discussing the 11th house and its influence in our chart and how that translates into our real waking life. And on that note, thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Show me some love and subscribe to my channel if you'd like and feel I have brought value to your understanding of astrology and, of course, other topics I like to talk about. As always, your time spent is much appreciated. Till next time, you know what you gotta do, so keep doing what you do. Peace, love, and most of all, light. I'm out.